we're going to be talking about gating in FCS Express 4. So we're not going to be talking about simple things like inserting plots and that kind of thing, because that's covered in the Getting Started webinar. But even if you don't really know your way around FCS Express yet, just stay tuned. I'm sure you're going to be able to follow up with everything that we're talking about today. Okay? So it looks like we're having some people logging on, so that's great. So I'm just going to go ahead and get started. Okay? So on this page I have a number of plots inserted. We're basically ready to go and start making some gates, okay? So the way you make gates is you come up to the gating tab on the ribbon, which is right here. So this ribbon has several different tabs of different functions you want to use. And today we're going to be on the gating tab. So you can see that we have all these different kinds of shapes available. Basically all the shapes that you would expect, okay? So for instance, here's an ellipse gate. So I'm going to make an ellipse on this first plot simply by clicking on the ellipse, and I'm going to draw my gate to the size that I want. And then when I'm ready, I release, okay? And so now I have this dialog box that's prompting me to name my gate. I'm going to call it an ellipse, okay? I can select the gate color, and don't feel restricted to all these predefined colors. We also have a full color palette for those of you who are more artistically inclined. So I'm going to give it this nice sort of aqua color. And then we also have the question, do we want to include the events inside the boundary of the gate or exclude them? So in most cases, you're going to click Include, and so your gate events are going to be inside of your gate. The Exclude gate is really useful for things like creating a gate around debris that you want to exclude from downstream analysis. Okay? So similarly, I'm now going to go make another simple gate using a rectangle, and I'm just going to draw that on my plot right here. I'm going to rename this to rectangle, and let's give it a nice color here of lime green. Okay. So, and these text boxes that appear with your gates, these text boxes that appear with your gates, if you have them appearing without your gate percentages, don't worry about that because that's something you can easily set up in your preferences if you want the percent gated to show up in those text boxes. Okay? Also, we have a polygon gate here. So I'm going to click on that and start drawing a polygon gate. I'm simply clicking around once on each vertex and then coming back to the first one to close the shape. Okay? So that's my polygon gate. And lastly, we have this freeform gate, which is kind of like drawing with a pen or pencil tool in Adobe Photoshop or Microsoft Office Paint. And this one, you don't have to close the shape. You can just release, and FCS Express will close that gate for you. So let's call this our freeform gate. And I'm going to give it this blue color. Okay. Let me move this text box down here. So once you've created any gate, you can easily resize it after the fact. So for these simple geometric shapes, you can grab onto these resizing handles and make the shape bigger or change its dimensions a little bit. Okay, in the case of the freeform gate, you have these outer resizing handles where you can resize the freeform gate as a whole, which is something that's new in version 4. In version 3, you couldn't do that, so this is pretty handy. And for the polygon gate, you can also resize the shape as a whole using these outer resizing handles, or you can grab onto an individual vertex and change the shape of the gate altogether. Okay, so are there any questions about that? I just want to reiterate for some people who just showed up that you can enter in your questions into the questions and answer box and we'll get back to you, okay? So that is basically how you create those simple gates in FCS Express, okay? And what you might have noticed, if you take a look at this plot on the bottom left here, we have some of those gate colors showing up because we're using color dot plots. But if you look at the title, if you look at the title of the plot, this is a completely different FCS file from this upper plot where I created my gates. But you can still see the gate colors here because in FCS Express, when you create a gate, it's not linked to your data file. It doesn't belong to any particular data file. Instead, when you create a gate, it simply exists in your layout, okay? And you have a choice about whether you want to look at that gate on any plot on your layout. You make that decision on a plot-by-plot basis, okay? So basically, for example, on this color dot plot, I can choose to show the outline of any gate that I want. I just showed the rectangle gate, okay? On these other kinds of plots, you can make those choices as well. So I'm just going to show all the gates on this contour plot at right. So if I maximize that just to show you, you can see that all those gates are now showing up, okay? So those gates can be applied to any plot that you want to apply them to. They don't belong to a certain file, so that's a key difference. Okay? Are there any questions about that? Okay. And so this is a dot plot here, so we don't have any colors showing up on this dot plot, but if I wanted to show the gates, I could still do that. Okay? And so the way you work with colors and color dot plots is basically, it's a very useful feature for things like backgating, but you may not want to show all the colors on all your plots all the time. So that's very easy to adjust in FCS Express. Just come over to your plot, right-click on it, and you'll get this formatting menu showing up. You go to Color Dot Options, and I'm going to come over to my Display Gates options. Okay? So keep an eye on this plot at left. Right now I'm displaying all the colors of all the gates that I've made. Okay? If instead I switch this radio button to No Gates, you can see that this color dot plot starts to look like this regular dot plot down here at the bottom. Okay? Another option you can do is only the gates shown below. So for instance, if I check off polygon and ellipse, and let me do a preview, you can see that only that purple and aqua color are showing up on my plot, and the other ones remain black. Okay? Now I'm going to switch this to all gates except those checked below. And so now you can see that basically the only colors that are showing up are this dark blue and this light green, okay? And then in these other two gates, the events are just colored the default black of my dot plot, okay? So like I said, this is a very useful feature for tracking populations across different plots. I'm just going to do a cancel. Okay, so typically the next thing you might want to do when you're gating is start drilling down on the population of one of the gates you made. So what I'm going to do is look at a plot gated on this ellipse, and we have a lot of drag and drop in FCS Express, as some of you might already know. So to look at this ellipse population in more detail, all I have to do is click on the gate and drag it out to a new spot on the layout. Okay, so now you can see that I've got a plot that is gated on my ellipse events. Okay. So I'm going to change my parameters here. And let's start making a few new gates, okay? So I'm going to make a rectangle gate around this population here. I'm just going to leave this called Gate 1 for now. Okay? And maybe I want to make an ellipse over here. Okay? So notice the backgating that has occurred. So right now we're looking at fluorescence parameters, but if you take a look at this original plot on the left, you can see that some of those red events are now visible on the plot because that's automatic backgating, okay? In addition, you see some red events that are outside of the original ellipse, and the same thing with these dark blue events. They're scattered all around the plot, okay? And you might be wondering why that's the case. So to show you what I mean, I'm going to come up to the Insert tab and pull up a gate view, and let's take a look at the legend of the gates that we've created so far. So right now we have a mixed population inside of the Gate 1. We've got heterogeneous colors of red and teal, and that's because right now Gate 1 is at the same level in the gating hierarchy as ellipse. But if instead I'd like to make my Gate 1 a child of the ellipse gate, it's very easy to do that using the gate view. So I'm simply going to click on my Gate 1 and drag and drop it into my ellipse gate, okay? So now you can see that the events inside of my Gate 1 boundary are homogeneously colored red, and those outliers that fall outside of the ellipse, they've disappeared. They're no longer red because they're no longer members of the Gate 1 gate. Now I'm just going to click and undo here up on the Quick Access toolbar, and I'm going to show you how you can actually drag two gates in to be a child of a gate at the same time. So I've highlighted Gate 1 and Gate 2 simply by pressing Shift on my keyboard while I selected them. And now I'm going to drag those both simultaneously into the ellipse gate. So do you see now how both of those gates are now children of the ellipse gate, and so those colors in the color dot plot are uniform inside the gate boundary. Okay? In fact, you can even get a little more fancy with your gating strategy here from the gate view. And I'm going to now make gate 2 a child of my gate 1 simply by dragging it in. And now you see we have no royal blue events inside gate 2. But if I drag this over to gate 1 so that there's an overlapping region, you can see that the intersection of those two gates are now colored blue. Okay? So if I decide that I want to change something about my gates, it's very easy to do that in FCS Express. So for instance, maybe I don't want gate 1 to be a square anymore. I actually want it to be a circle. So I'm going to click on ellipse and draw this ellipse on my gate, on my plot. And so now I'm asked, do I want to create a gate or replace? So I'm actually going to choose this time to replace my original gate 1 and click OK. So now you can see that gate 1 has been redefined as an ellipse, but at the same time gate 1 has retained its place in the hierarchy. It's still a child of the original ellipse gate, and its child gate, gate 2, is still its. So hopefully you can see now that it's very easy to redefine your gate shapes and make changes to your gates without having to redo your whole gating logic. So it's a very fluid gating experience, and I think it's actually very easy to work with. You can even do things like rename your gate. So I'm going to just click on that gate 1, click F2 on my keyboard, which is a normal, regular rename command in Windows, and I'm going to rename this to be called my red gate. Okay? So now it's called my red gate. You can see that the gate text box automatically updated. All right. So I'm actually just going to drag gate 2 so that now they're at the same level again. Okay. So from the gate view, you can also delete gates. So for instance, if I don't want to see this rectangle gate anymore, I'm just going to click on it once and hit a delete on my keyboard to get rid of it. Okay. So, and I just want to point out this gate view is located here on the Insert tab, and this is where you're going to do basically all your work about gating. Okay, you're going to redefine gates, rename gates, etc. And please don't confuse this gate view with the Gate Navigator. The Gate Navigator is actually located here under the View tab, and if we have time at the end of the webinar, I'm going to show you what the Gate Navigator is used for, but it's basically a navigational tool, so it's not really used for defining gates or changing gate hierarchies. It's really just a tool to find your way around your layout. So just try to keep that distinct in your mind from gate view. Gate view is really what you're going to want to work with in most cases. Okay? Are there any questions about creating gates and changing hierarchies at this point? If there are, just go ahead and enter that into the questions and answer box. We'll be happy to respond to those. Okay? So probably the next question on everyone's lips is, how do we actually apply gates in FCS Express? Well, in FCS Express, like I said, we have a lot of drag and drop, and you could use drag and drop from the gate view to apply gates. So for instance, if I want to gate on my ellipse, I can simply click on ellipse, and I'm going to drag it over to this plot on the right here. And notice that this density plot has now updated to only be gated on ellipse events. Okay? You can also drag and drop from plot to plot. So I'm going to highlight this ellipse gate on this plot and drag it down to this plot over here. And so now you can see that this gate is gated on ellipse. I can even show that outline if I want to. I can actually show that text box again if I want to. Okay? So it's very easy to do that with drag and drop. In addition, if you come up to your gating tab, you have what's called this current gate toolbar, which shows the gate that your plot is currently gated on. So right now this selected plot is gated on ellipse. I can use this toolbar to redefine what it's gated on. So maybe I want to gate it on freeform. Now you can see that only freeform events are showing up. You can even multiply select plots like this. So I'm just doing a drag with my mouse, or you can do a control click to multiply select and gate those two plots simultaneously. So right now I'm making them both ungated again. Maybe I want to make them gated on red gate. Okay? And probably a lot of you like to work with your plots so that you can see at one glance what they're gated on, and perhaps you want to know the gate name inside of the title of the plot. Well, it's very easy to format your plot titles to contain that information. You can just come over to Format by right-clicking. And now I'm going to come over to the title and just add the current gate into my plot name. Okay? So now you can see that it says it's gated on ellipse. And that'll, of course, automatically update if I change it. Okay? And I just want to add that that's something that's very easy to set up in your preferences. If you always want to look at the gate name in your plots, you can set that up in your preferences. And in addition, if you always like to create gates hierarchically rather than dragging them each time when you make a new plot, that's an additional thing you can set up in your preferences. And if we have time, I'll show you how to do that at the end. Okay? So that is basically how you apply gates in FCS Express. And now I just want to show you a couple of different kinds of gates you can make. So if I just change this, so let me actually gate this on ellipse for a second. So probably a lot of you are working with quadrants, and I want to show you something really neat we can do with quadrants in FCS Express, okay? And I'm just going to quickly reformat these quads to be floating so they fit my population a little bit better. Oops. Okay, so right now we've got some floating quad on this plot down here. And perhaps I'd like to convert this upper right quad into a gate. Well, to do that, you just right-click on the plot, and I'm going to go to Convert Quads to Gates, okay? And let's choose the upper right. And so we have a choice between converting and linking. So what converting will do is it will convert that upper right quad as it currently exists into a regular gate. But something that's even a little more interesting is you can do convert and link, and that way as you adjust the quad, the gate will move in accordance. So let's call this our upper right quad gate, okay? And I'm going to I guess I'll leave that as green. So now this upper right quad gate, I'm going to actually drag it to be a child in my ellipse, and keep an eye on this upper right plot. I'm going to gate that on upper right. So now as I move my quad down here, do you see that that upper right population is changing? I can even add the gate outline here so it'll be a little bit more clear. Okay, so watch that gate changing on the upper right plot as I move my quad around. So this is something that's very useful because typically, perhaps in other software you make quads, but you're pretty limited about what you can do with those quads. Well, in FCS Express, this becomes a very powerful and useful feature for you. Okay? I'm actually going to delete that because I don't need it. In addition, you can do something similar with markers. So if I want to add a marker to this plot right here, I can just right-click, go to Create Marker, and so now I have a marker. And in the very much the same way, I can convert that marker, convert and link it, or convert it to a gate. So let's call this my marker gate. I'm going to click OK. And now if I gate this upper plot now on my marker gate, watch what happens as I move my marker. Do you see the population updating? So that's something very useful in case you find yourself using markers on histograms and now you want to translate that to be useful onto a 2D dot plot. Okay, I'm actually going to delete that again too. I don't want my layout to get too busy. And in addition, you can even do the reverse. So you can create a 1D gate on a 2D dot plot and then apply that to a histogram. So let me show you what I mean. I'm just going to right-click, go to Create Gate, Marker. Let's try that one more time. I think it didn't quite click. Okay, and so now if I start drawing a 1D gate, and let's call this my 1D gate. Okay, and I'm going to drag that to be a child of my ellipse. All right, so now if I gate this histogram down below on that 1D gate, watch what happens as I move my 1D gate. Do you see the histogram updating? And just to show you, that 1D gate is truly independent of what your y-axis is. So I'm going to change my y-axis on my 2D plot up here to be side scatter. But look that that histogram down below is updating regardless of whatever my y-axis is on the parent plot. Okay? Are there any questions about that? I'm just going to delete that. and regate these both on ellipse. Okay? So that is basically how you create gates from markers and quads. Okay. Another really useful thing you might want to do is create combination gates. So that is something you would do from the gate view as well. And so I'm just going to click a right click. Actually, let's show these gates here so we can work with this plot. And I'm just going to add one more gate here to keep things a little bit interesting. Okay. Let's call this gate 3. So another thing you might want to do is create combination gates. So you can right-click on your gate view and click Add Combination Gate. Okay, and let's call this My Combo Gate. And I see a question coming up asking, can we convert color dot plots to other dot plots like density? Yes, you absolutely can convert plot types at any time, and that's something you would do on the Format menu. Okay. So let's call this gate My Combo Gate, and I'm going to change this to a nice hot pink color so it really stands out, and I'm going to start creating a formula. So the first thing I'm going to do is start typing the name of a gate. So I typed in R. Notice the autofill. FCS Express autofilled red gate in for me. So I'm going to write red gate, and now this is where you start using Boolean operators like and, or, and not. So I'm going to write red gate and, notice again the autofill, gate 2. So now if I click OK, and let's drag this so it's a child. So now let me make this gate so that there's an intersection. And do you notice the pink events showing up inside the intersection of these plots? If I gate this plot on the My Combo Gate, you can see that the My Combo Gate has now been defined as the intersection of those two gates. Okay? I can alter this formula if I want to, simply by double-clicking. Maybe I want to change this AND Boolean operator to an OR. I'm going to click OK. So now you see that the My Combo Gate has been defined as the union of those two gates. Okay? And you can even use other kinds of Boolean operators, such as XOR, which is exclusive OR. Okay, and now you see that the gates that fall either in the red gate or in gate 2 have been defined as My Combo Gate, but that excludes the intersection of those two gates. Okay, and I have a question coming up asking why are these events colored pink and blue and other colors? Why are they not all pink? And the reason for that is if you look over here at the gate view, the My Combo Gate is actually at the same level as all these other gates, and so that's why you're seeing all the colors. If the My Combo Gate was to be a daughter of one of those gates, then in that gate you would see that it was just pink, okay? So that color dot plot is basically a way for you to also know something about the hierarchy of your gates. If you're not working with color dot plots and instead you're working with a regular dot plot or a density plot or something like that, you can avoid looking at those colors if you want to. Okay, these colors of the events are really just for color dot plots. So don't feel that you need to work with them if you don't want to. Okay? So, and in addition, I just want to show you can get pretty fancy with these Boolean formulas. So I'm going to start writing not, and I'm actually going to start drawing some parentheses. So let's close the parentheses here. So now I have not red gate or gate 2. And so now you see that that formula is very similar to creating an exclusion gate, except your exclusion criteria consists of 2 gates as opposed to 1. All right? So let's just delete that out, okay? And if you find yourself doing quite a lot of Boolean gating, one thing that might be pretty useful for you is to actually create a combination gate matrix, okay? So what that means is FCS Express can be used to make all of the Boolean combinations that are possible for your 3 gates, or however many gates we're talking about on your plot. So all you need to do that is select all those gates that you want to make a gate matrix of. So I just used shift-click to select all of those, and then right-click and hit Add Combination Gate Matrix. Okay. And I'm actually going to drag these so that they're all children of my ellipse gate. Okay. So now if you want to look at that triple positive population, for instance, so I'm going to drag this over. This is triple positive. And by the way, this is a very useful feature for doing complex things like analyzing phenotypes. Okay, so now let me maximize this. It might be a little bit hard for you to see. You can see that only the events that fall in all three of my gates fall into this triple positive gate that was created in your gate matrix, okay? So all of these different combinations are possible. You can drag and drop them and see, which is the one you want to use, okay? Are there any questions about that? You can double click on one of these combination gate matrices. You can double click on one of these gates inside the matrix and see what that Boolean formula is if you're curious. But this is a real time saver in case you don't want to spend a lot of time typing out those formula, and that can be a little bit error prone as well. Now I'm just going to delete those because I really don't need all those gates for the rest of my analysis. Okay, so are there any questions about that so far? So I just want to point out that once you've created a gating strategy that you like, and if you think you might be likely to reuse this gating strategy in the future, it's very easy to save your gates and use them in another layout inside of FCS Express. So what I'm going to do is just click on Save under the Gates button here on the gating toolbar, and let's call this our webinar gates today, and let's save this to our desktop. So let me just show you how you can import those gates into another layout. So I'm just going to open up another layout real quick, and let's insert a dot plot here. Okay, and now if we look at our gate view, we can import those gates. I'm just going to click Load. So now you can see that all these gates that we just created are ready to go and ready to use in a future layout. And I can just show you that it really does work by dragging that over. Okay? So that's a really useful feature for some of you. Okay, so that is basically making gates on 2D plots and all the usual types of gates that you're probably going to use for your regular flow cytometry analysis. In our remaining time, I just want to show you some other kinds of gates we have. So for instance, some of you out there might be doing high content flow analysis. So as you know, we have a high content add-on for analyzing multi-well data from many manufacturers. And what's really neat about this is in a layout like this, in addition to all the regular shape gates that you see on the 2D dot plots here, we also have something like well gates. So if I edit the well gates that exist already on here, right now you can see, hopefully you can see this well here. That's the fourth one from the left. It's outlined in purple. And that's basically our experimental well. Basically, that experimental well is showing up here as this blue overlay in this histogram, okay? But I can edit that well gate simply by selecting these wells down here, okay? And now you can see that that histogram has updated to reflect my changed gate. And notice how I even selected a non-contiguous region, okay? I have these 4 wells here and this well up there. So you're very flexible in looking at the data that you want to look at, okay? In addition, for those of you out there who may be experimenting with image cytometry, I want to point out that we have these very useful picture plot gates, and these picture plot gates were created in the same way that we create a normal shape gate, except this is applied to a picture plot, which is basically a mask of all your images, of all your cells in your image. And so if you look at this dot plot down here, which is the intensity versus area of your cells, I can actually drag this red gate down here just like a normal gate and see now that my dot plot is gated on those red events, okay? Similarly, if you look at this nuclear picture plot on the right and the accompanying dot plot, I can use these dot plot gates to backgate onto the image above. So right now if I make this gate bigger, you can see I'm looking at all the cells, I'm highlighting all the cells, whereas if I change this dot plot gate to only be looking at the very bright nuclei, I can you can see that that backgating automatically occurs on the picture plot, okay? And I have this data grid here on the right as well, which you can apply gates to, and that's sort of like a gallery of all your cells, looking at the cytoplasm and the DNA images, okay? And I also want to show you, like I said, I was hoping that I'd have time to get back to the BD webinar, I'm sorry, to get back to showing you how the Gate Navigator works. So, you know, we're spending most of the time today talking about Gate View because that's where you do most of your work about making gates. But if you have a complex layout like this, you can see we have many different pages here. This is about a 10-page layout. You might know that you have a gate somewhere in the layout, a plot somewhere in the layout that's gated on a certain gate, but you don't remember where it is. So for instance, you know you have some plots that are gated on your CD45 dim gate, but you're not sure which page it's on. Well, all you have to do is open up your Gate Navigator, come over to your CD45 gate and expand the list. And then if you notice I'm mousing over this list very slowly, you can start to see thumbnails appearing of the gates. I'm sorry, of the plots that are gated on that gate, okay? And if I want to actually quickly go to one of those plots, all I need to do is click on that, and you can see that FCS Express takes me to the relevant page of my layout and highlights the plot in question. And just like everything else in FCS Express, these things dynamically update. So if I change this plot so it's no longer gated on CD45 dim, but I'm actually going to ungate it, you can see that it actually changed, and it also disappeared from my list in the Gate Navigator, okay? So this is plot 336, and you don't see plot 336 in this list anymore, okay? Are there any questions about that? So just to reiterate, that's very different from the Gate View, and it's really just a navigational tool to help you find your way around your layout. Okay? So it looks like we're just about wrapping up, and if there's no other questions, I'll just proceed to our summary here. So hopefully what I've showed you here today is that in FCS Express, you're able to make many kinds of gates. So all of the normal shape gates that you would expect are here. It's also very easy to create combination gates using Boolean operators, and you can automate that process by creating gate matrices. You can create well gates if you're using high content data and you're doing a lot of multi-well acquisition using multi-well plates. And we also have picture plot gates for those of you out there who are doing image cytometry, and data grid gates if you'd like to look at your cells or your pictures of your cells or your events in a sort of gallery view. And hopefully I've also shown you that our gate view allows you to make very fluid adjustments to your gates. So you can easily change your hierarchy, do whatever you want, okay? And you don't need to spend a lot of time deleting and renaming gates just because you make a few changes. And in addition, we have these wonderful gate navigators that help you find your way around your layout with ease. And so for those of you who haven't yet started working with the software or haven't downloaded a demo, I just want to show you our website where you can easily download our demo. Our demo is a free 30-day fully functional evaluation version of the program. So this is our website, and if you just scroll down to the bottom and come to the downloads and click on the demo, you can download a demo and see how that works out for you, okay? And I also want to point out that all of the stuff that I covered today is available in our tutorials. So if you have the program open, you can just come up to the Applications button, come down to Help, go to our tutorials, okay? And basically our tutorials, we have tutorials on lots of different topics. So here's the gating one. Everything I talked about today is right here in the gating one. And in addition, if you have more technical questions about things like Boolean logic formulas or that sort of thing, the first part of our manual will have all that information. So you can just click on the search, write in the word Boolean, okay? And you'll see that all these pages come up and you should be able to find the information you're looking for. But if you somehow get stuck or you just want some a real human to answer you, we're happy to respond to your questions. Just email us anytime at support@denovosoftware.com, and we'll be happy to get back to you. We have very responsive customer support. Many times we get back to you the same day, but you can usually expect to hear back from us within a day or two, and we definitely are happy to hear from customers at any time, okay? And those tutorials I showed you, they're also available online on our website. If you don't have FCS Express open, they're easily accessible. And we also have sample data that you can play around with, including the sample data that I worked with today. Okay? So are there any other questions